Nicky, how are you? Thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations on such a positive outcome to what must have been a horrendous project to have to undertake. I take my hat off to you. Well done, mate.
Thank you. I'm happy.
First of all, I'd just like you to talk me through the whole process, your experience after you published Hit and Run. What's it been like facing a government inquiry? And what have you learnt about that process?
Oh, I've learned a lot about being in a government inquiry. In fact, the first thing I would say is people should be very cautious before they call for an inquiry because it's going to take over your life. And it would have been possible to go through 2.5 years of inquiry and to be disappointed or even get, slayed in the process. But luckily, I haven't been. We've been very lucky that inquiries worked out well. So let me tell you about it. What an inquiry like this is in itself is such a good idea, which under the Inquiries Act of New Zealand, that you can get some independent people and they will look at an issue which is highly disputed and the facts aren't clear and come up with an answer. It just sounds so right. And that's when the trouble begins. And it's kind of like, it's like people in a court case in New Zealand, where you say, aren't we lucky to live in a country where everyone's equal before the law and anyone can turn up in court and the judge is going to work out who's right. And then we remember that the person who can afford the QC and has family money behind them is far more likely to get off than other people. And it's like that. It was just like that in this inquiry, which meant that it was a massive battle of resources. It was two completely non-funded authors on one side and a series of lawyers and experts and expert witnesses and armies of military people on side to do what they needed to do, fighting with resources to try to close down and stop every single little positive conclusion we could have possibly got them to reach. So it was a huge unequal battle of resources, and I'm still slightly dazed and amazed that we got through.
Did you feel that you had your arm tied behind your back a lot of the time when you couldn't actually get in the same room as people with secret information and whatever they were saying?
Yeah, the way the process went was it was actually a whole year, like 12 months. Right? It was supposed to be a 12-month inquiry, but the first 12 months was legal battles about what the process would be, meaning mainly battles from defence and related agencies' point of view. And they wanted things like the most basic element of fairness would be they could see everything that we had done. It was there in the book. It was there in our submissions. We weren't hiding our agenda. And so they could see everything and try to find ways to pick holes in it and to create doubt. We never got to see a single thing of what the other side was saying. Now, that is like a court, that's like the most kangaroo court kind of you could possibly imagine. And so in the first months, just endless battles with them saying, everything is so secret, and everyone, all the SAS people will get their throats cut in their beds if we have to let the others know what we're saying. That it was just like a totally unfair system. And so a lot of, for the first year, there was this growing sense of frustration of we're just totally getting procedurally outmaneuvered here. And I didn't know what to do about it. And so I wrote these huge submissions. I went around the world and found equivalent overseas inquiries and showed that they didn't have to be so secret. And I'd come back to the SIRS and say, is it really necessary? Are you sure we have to leave the Defence Force that every single document, even unclassified documents, have to be secret as they're claiming? And all of their witnesses have to be secret or else their lives are at risk and so on. All self-serving things that happened. But we mostly lost on all those procedural things. And it seemed like they were just going to kind of overrun us with procedure.
Let's unpack this just a little bit more, because one of the difficulties that investigators such as yourself doing this kind of work right from the beginning you're up against it, aren't you? Because you can't get access to every document, to every witness perhaps. And therefore it does become difficult to be absolutely sure of your facts. And that's one of the first things that people that you are maybe confronting go, oh, you missed this detail and you missed that detail. Did you have a lot of that?
Of course, but every project I have ever done, every book, every investigation I've ever done, people go, oh my God, look at page 57, you've got the date wrong. In other words, we need to understand what's tactics and what is rational debate. And
Yes.
in tactics, people are looking for errors so they can say, this thing is full of errors. How can we possibly take it seriously? When a rational person would say, well, you've got all your main points right. And of course, there are human limits to what you can do when you can't torture people to get the truth out of them.
Yeah. Just tell me, was there a point in the inquiry you thought, this is going to be terrible, this is going to be an awful outcome, and then another point where you thought, well, hang on, just a minute, this is a turning point, maybe we're getting somewhere?
Yeah, it was not a joyous process because we were just getting done on, I'd make these careful submissions about rationality and openness and what would be fair. And then the next minute would come from the SIRS, which was basically saying, no, go the defence way. And so it got grimmer and grimmer. And I got to the stage where I thought, I'm actually just dignifying an unfair process with my presence. I think I'll pull out of it. And then something happened, which is quite funny, because I've been lobbying that they should get their own people to test whether the documents the secret, very, very, very secret documents could possibly be shown to us. Actually evaluate whether the Defence Force was telling the truth and was right, that nothing could be shown. And it was kind of like the perfect bait for a researcher. Right on the point where I was going to pull out, they released their first batch of declassified documents. And how could someone like me want to leave at the point where possibly, there was going to start to be some rational engagement and some real information produced by the inquiry? And so there was a point where I decided I'm just going to keep working and maybe it will turn out all right. And frankly, I didn't know it was going to be all right until more or less the day it came out on Friday. This Friday just passed.
What was your reaction to that when this finally the result came out?
My reaction, tremendous relief, because there's a sort of this is not about rationality again. This is just about the nature of public issues and news. If the news had come out on Friday and said, main allegations of book wrong, it doesn't matter whether it was correct or anything, or how much we had right or how much we had truth on our side, that would have been the story forever. You can't argue nitpicking point by point that this isn't true and we were right on this and things. And so how it comes out is more or less going to write the history of it forever. They got off, or they won and there was something wrong. And so when it came out and the news stories were saying this was a terrible thing and the damning report, the plane had landed, we were safe. It wasn't going to be all that work and the 90-something% where we were right hadn't been, properly undone by the bits and pieces where, unsurprisingly, of course, when you're dealing with a cold case far away in roadless mountains, where of course you're going to have some errors. But we got away with it.
Tell me, what was at stake for you?
That's a good question. I have to say, the main reason I did this was because I wanted good to happen. I wanted the Defence Force, who normally trick and mislead the public, in my view, and don't face up to their responsibilities, to have to face up. And I wanted there to be, more and more, especially as they went on so without relenting, I wanted there to be a memory, an organisational memory of, we really stuffed up and got caught for it. We have to be more careful next time. So I had external goals. But the truth is, what was in it for me? What was I thinking? The honest answer is, as things went worse and worse for a while, I was thinking, I might yet have put years of work into a project which just gets held against me for years and years afterwards. Because the fact is, when I do a new project and the next round of people say, he got it all wrong, it's not true, whatever it is, I don't want to give them ammunition to beat me that time. But this project is used to try to discredit my future work. And so when it was going badly, I was thinking, man, I might be in big trouble now. This might really be my future work. As it happens, it didn't happen, and life is going to go on well.
Well, that's the thing, Nicky, that I, admire in you. You take a risk, and you took an enormous risk on this. But I don't know. I think it might have been General Tojo or someone who said there is no glory without risk. And I think that is true. And I, as I say, I take my hat off to you for it. Will you write about this experience, do you think?
I'm not sure. It was actually, I haven't, it was very hard. It was a pretty awful experience some of the way. And I don't think, for example, I would set out to write another book about, hit and run 2, the inquiry, because I just, in me. But what I will do sometime, I almost certainly, is write something about the structural things that were unfair and the craziness of public servants being able to spend millions of dollars to try to get out of things, and different government departments gang up together to try and stop people being held accountable. I will write this will happen again, and it will be really useful if next time they set up an inquiry on this, that we don't have to go through a year of all the mistakes and kind of problems that we had with this one.
You see, at stake for you was personal credibility. At stake for the Defence Force was their credibility. It's good that you came off better.
Yes, of course. Naturally, I think that. But more than that, the Defence Force are crazy. They should not think that. They've actually there's a disease in public agencies, which is our reputation must be protected at all costs. My own view is that when people stand up, especially officials stand up and government departments stand up and say, we made a mistake, we're fronting up on it, I can see the credibility graph zooming up when they do that, but they just don't see it. Right? This whole hit and run thing, it wasn't a heinous crime at the beginning. The SAS didn't go there to cut children's throats or something. They didn't mean to hurt children and their parents and stuff. They could have just at the very beginning saved us all this trouble by putting out a press release and saying, we made a mistake on a raid. This is what happened. We are going to give maximum aid to the families. We want to show that we as a country and as a military are prepared to do the right thing when these things happen. End of story. No fight, no bullshit. Wouldn't need to spend millions of dollars trying to be tricky and get out of it and hire all the lawyers and everything. That's the lesson I wish they would learn. Personally, I don't think they've learned it a bit.
Nicky, it's really good to talk with you. I'm glad you do the work you do, and congratulations again.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.
Kia kaha. Bye.